Empires almost never die on battlefields. They die from stupidity. One bad choice can erase centuries of power in months. A tax sparks a revolution. A treaty invites an invasion. A king trusts the wrong guest, and an empire disappears. These are 39 choices so dumb they triggered collapse. Hitler attacks the Soviet Union and opens a doomed Eastern Front. Germany's early games crack as distances stretch and logistics unravel. Operation Barbarossa hits Moscow's suburbs, then winter slams the brakes, fuel freezes, oil congeals, and tanks become cold statues. Stalingrad turns street corners into fortresses and factories into trenches. Sixth Army surrenders, and the myth of invincibility evaporates. Then Kursk's minefields and anti-tank lines blunt panzer momentum. Soviet industry relocates east, outproducing Berlin with relentless resilience. Partisans cut rails while the Red Army learns fast. Two fronts demand everything, and Germany has far too little. Japan bombs Pearl Harbor and wakes up U.S. industrial overkill. The surprise attack cripples battleships but misses American carriers entirely. Washington declares war and assembly lines roar like never before. Midway flips momentum as codebreakers ambush 4 Japanese carriers. Island hopping bypasses strongholds, squeezing supply lines thinner each month. Guadalcanal bleeds air crews. The Solomons grind down veteran pilots. Submarines sink tankers, starving Japan's factories and fleet boilers. B-29 raids and mines choke ports and transportation arteries. Hiroshima and Nagasaki force surrender after catastrophic urban firestorms. A short-term gamble births a long, unwinnable industrial war. Britain taxes American colonies without representation, loses an entire continent. Stamp duties and tea schemes spark boycotts and street confrontations. Boston's harbor becomes a teapot after nighttime chests go overboard. Parliament doubles down, sending redcoats and punishing Massachusetts hard. Lexington and Concord light a war neither side expected. George Washington forges an army from farmers and volunteers. France joins late, tipping sieges and sea battles decisively. Yorktown traps Cornwallis when French fleets close the Chesapeake. Negotiators in Paris redraw maps from Canada to Florida. A revenue plan accidentally funds a brand new nation. Cleopatra bets everything on Mark Antony against Rome's superpower rise. Octavian frames Antony's alliance as Egypt's leash on Rome. At Actium, cramped waters punish Antony's heavier, slower ships. Cleopatra's squadron breaks away, and Antony follows the signal. Octavian's admirals seal the Gulf and grind remaining hulls. Back in Alexandria, defenses crack under tightening Roman pressure. Reports say both rulers die rather than parade captive. Ptolemaic Egypt dissolves into Rome's administrative provinces immediately afterward. Octavian takes titles, wealth, and unmatched Mediterranean legitimacy. A court romance collides with an empire's cold arithmetic. Louis XVI summons the Estates General and accidentally sparks the French Revolution. Financial collapse forces Versailles to call representatives after decades. The Third Estate organizes separately and claims national authority. A locked room moves them to a nearby indoor court. Oaths fly, declaring reforms, until a constitution finally exists. Bastille's fall signals Paris won't accept forceful royal answers. Decrees abolish feudal dues as countryside panic spreads outward. The king hesitates, then rides to Paris under tricolor escorts. Radicals gain momentum. Moderates lose control of events rapidly. A procedural fix becomes a nationwide political landslide. Tsar Nicholas II personally commands World War I troops, tanks Imperial Russia at home. He leaves Petrograd, handing domestic influence to the palace circle. Military disasters mount, while supplies fail from rail bottlenecks constantly. Winter shortages trigger bread lines and angry crowds near barracks. Garrison soldiers refuse orders, then join demonstrators in streets. The Duma pushes changes, Ministers fall in rapid succession. Nicholas abdicates aboard a train after losing key support. Provisional leaders struggle with war, land, and legitimacy simultaneously. Soviets organize factories and regiments, competing for public loyalty. The empire snaps before peace terms ever arrive. Alexander the Great names no clear heir. Empire fractures instantly. His sudden death leaves generals guessing about succession and authority. An infant relative appears, but regency politics devour consensus. Antigonus, Ptolemy, Seleucus, and others carve territories by force. Babylon conferences promise unity, then dissolve into marching columns. Greek cities watch foreign garrisons shift flags repeatedly overnight. Egypt builds a dynasty, while Asia becomes a chessboard. Seleucid borders breathe, expanding and contracting with every campaign season. Antagonids hold Macedon, yet rivals bleed them constantly. One conqueror's map becomes several stubborn, competing kingdoms. Aztec Emperor Moctezuma welcomes Cortés as a guest inside Tenochtitlan. Spanish horsemen, steel, and gunpowder unsettle nobles and priests. Cortés seizes Moctezuma, ruling indirectly from the emperor's palace. Alliances with Tlaxcala supply porters, warriors, and crucial local intelligence. A night escape turns streets into causeways of chaos. Smallpox tears through neighborhoods, emptying houses before battles resume. Cortés rebuilds brigantines to blockade lakes and sever supply lines. Siege famine bites hard as aqueducts and markets fail. Tenochtitlan falls, temples burn, and canals choke with debris. An empire collapses inside its glittering island capital. Inca Emperor Atahualpa meets Pizarro unarmed. For talks, gets kidnapped. Civil war with Huáscar leaves armies tired and divided. At Cajamarca's plaza, hidden muskets and cavalry explode outward. Atahualpa is seized quickly, while nobles scatter in shock. Ransom rooms pile with gold and silver ornaments rapidly. Despite payment, execution follows, decapitating leadership and ritual authority. Spanish columns march on Cusco, installing compliant puppet rulers. Road networks help invaders move faster than fragmented resistance. Disease outruns armies, emptying storehouses and thinning labor forces. An empire built on roads unravels at one square. Rome relies on barbarian mercenaries who then take over everything. Federati win battles, then bargain hard for land settlements. Commanders like Stilicho balance court intrigue and frontier necessities. Visigoths sack Rome, shocking citizens and distant provinces alike. Vandals cross into Africa, seizing grain and naval bases. Roman taxes tighten, while coinage shrinks and soldiers desert. Odoacer deposes Romulus Augustulus, ending Western imperial ceremonies. Eastern emperors still claim supremacy, but power shifts westward. Gothic kings rule Italy, while Roman law lingers stubbornly. Hired swords decide borders when imperial legions cannot. Ming China burns the treasure fleets and abandons global ocean power. Zheng He's giant ships once reached Africa's Swahili ports. Court factions later favor granaries, walls, and northern garrisons. Shipyards go quiet. Nautical logs and plans gather dust. Maritime bans limit merchants, inviting smugglers and coastal pirates. European caravels arrive, exploring, trading, and probing Asian markets. Gunpowder fleets redraw routes, while China watches from harbors. Silver inflows rise, yet blue water experience withers badly. Regional navies handle pirates, not transoceanic rivals or colonies. Great walls replace great wakes on the horizon. Spain floods Europe with New World silver, triggers empire-killing inflation. Treasure fleets pour bullion into markets, spiking prices relentlessly. Soldiers get paid, but wages lag behind soaring costs. Royal loans balloon financing wars across scattered European fronts. Dutch provinces rebel as taxes squeeze merchants and peasants. Repeated bankruptcies scare lenders, raising interest for future campaigns. Manufacturing stagnates while imports undercut local workshops everywhere. Convoys face storms, corsairs, and ambushes near Atlantic Narrows. Wealth arrives shiny, then leaves faster through creditors' ledgers. An empire drowns slowly in silver it cannot manage. Spain marries only cousins. Charles II is born, dynasty collapses. Generations of Habsburg intermarriage concentrate traits and vulnerabilities. Charles grows frail, heirless, and politically contested by factions. Succession questions invite neighboring powers to sharpen knives. Ministers juggle regencies, councils, and suspicious foreign ambassadors constantly. Trade falters while armies struggle on too many fronts. When Charles dies, Europe rushes toward the Spanish succession. Alliances form quickly, counting seats before cannons even roll. Treaties later divide colonies, fortresses, and maritime routes carefully. A family tree narrows until the trunk simply breaks. Kaiser Wilhelm II fires Bismarck, lets Germany's alliances fall apart. The reinsurance treaty with Russia quietly expires without renewal. Paris and St. Petersburg discover common cause against Berlin. Weltpolitik chases colonies and dreadnought prestige over quiet diplomacy. Britain answers with shipyards humming and global ententes tightening. Crises stack. Morocco, the Balkans, and railway timetables nervously. Schlieffen plans gamble on speed through Belgium's neutral plains. Britain enters after treaties and fear of channel ports. The encirclement Bismarck warned about finally materializes in steel. A sacked chancellor's ghost haunts every general staff map. The Soviet Union invades Afghanistan and bleeds out superpower status. Paratroopers secure Kabul airports, while advisors replace local leaders. Guerrillas disperse into mountains, choosing ambush over open battles. Supply convoys thread valleys where mines and rockets wait. Helicopters dominate daytime, then fear night routes and ridgelines. Stinger missiles arrive later, rewriting altitude calculations for pilots. Casualties mount, coffins return quietly, and morale erodes domestically. Budgets strain alongside factories already chasing technological parity. Withdrawal begins, leaving garrisons to cover endless vulnerable miles. A low-intensity war drains a high-intensity state. The Ottoman Empire joins World War I on the losing side. Warships Goeben and Breslau bring the empire into conflict. Dardanelles defenses hold against landings but devastate local reserves. Caucasus winters punish columns more than enemy bullets sometimes. Arab revolts split garrisons and telegraph lines across deserts. Blockades squeeze ports, amplifying famine and disease catastrophically. Sykes-Picot drafts mandates before the shooting even stops. Armistice terms dismantle provinces into protectorates and mandates swiftly. Ankara's movement builds a republic from the central plateau. The old imperial mosaic finally breaks into separate tiles. Athens gambles on the Sicilian expedition, loses its naval empire. Glittering Syracuse promises grain, allies, and decisive prestige. Alcibiades sails, then faces trial summons and defects abroad. Nicias hesitates, giving defenders months to strengthen walls. Spartan advisors help Syracuse build counterwalls across approaches. Night fighting turns harbors into mazes of rams and oars. Athens sends reinforcements that arrive tired and undersupplied. A final retreat stalls in marshes under relentless javelins. Prisoners rot in stone quarries under harsh Sicilian sun. A city of debate loses to a city of timing. Byzantine princes invite crusaders to help. Crusaders sack Constantinople, 1204. A dynastic dispute opens palace gates to Western swords. Debts to Venetian bankers redirect piety toward political targets. Walls that resisted sultans fold to fire and treachery. Relics vanish while crowns and regalia change owners overnight. A Latin empire rises, fragile and deeply resented locally. The Balkans fracture into competing successor courts and fortresses. Trade routes pivot toward Venice and away from imperial harbors. Byzantines retake Constantinople later, but resources are permanently drained. A rescue request ends as a generational wound. Crusader hothead breaks Saladin's truce. Jerusalem falls and the kingdom dies. Attacks on caravans shatter the careful peace's fragile trust. Saladin assembles armies from Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia quickly. At Hattin, thirst and heat pin crusaders to rocky ground. Relics fall and mounted knights collapse beneath arrow storms. Fortresses surrender sequentially as ports negotiate their terms. Jerusalem capitulates after siege machines pound its battered walls. Third Crusade answers, but lost depth cannot be restored. A border kingdom becomes a coastline of isolated strongholds. One reckless raid rewrites the entire strategic map. Ferdinand and Isabella expel Spain's Jews, gutting moneylenders and admin talent. The edict orders conversion or departure within tight deadlines. Communities sell property cheaply before crowded Mediterranean sailings. Crown finances lose experienced lenders and tax farmers overnight. Trade networks break when trusted brokers scatter across borders. Some conversos remain, yet suspicion fuels inquisitorial pressures. Meanwhile, Columbus petitions and sails under the same monarchs. Atlantic ventures grow, while domestic capacity thins unexpectedly. Silver later masks administrative gaps, but not institutional memory. A kingdom narrows its expertise while widening its horizons. British East India Company enforces tea monopoly, sparks the Boston Tea Party. Cheaper tea still carries a political price tag. Dockworkers and merchants fear precedent more than pennies saved. Disguised townspeople board ships and dump cargo methodically. Parliament answers with punitive acts closing Boston's busy port. Committees coordinate boycotts from warehouses to backcountry taverns. Provincial militias drill, storing powder in hidden depots. Skirmishes at Concord and Lexington ignite wider mobilization. The monopoly backfires into mobilized communities and continental congresses. An imported leaf brews a revolutionary storm. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare brings America into World War I, ends the Kaiser. Torpedoes strike merchantmen without warning across crowded sea lanes. Protests mount after liners sink with passengers and mail. Berlin pauses, then resumes under desperate attritional logic. Zimmerman's message offers Mexico wagers on American territories. Washington declares war, flooding trenches with men and material. Convoys, depth charges, and air patrols strangle U-boats. Allied offensives coordinate with fresh divisions arriving continuously. German home fronts buckle under shortages and strike waves. A gamble beneath waves surfaces as national collapse. Byzantium charges blindly into Manzikert, loses Anatolia forever. Romanos IV marches deep, then splits forces unwisely before battle. Seljuk horse archers tease lines, refusing decisive engagements repeatedly. A feigned retreat becomes a real catastrophe at dusk. Captured emperor returns, but palace factions tear politics apart. Frontier garrisons abandon towns when relief never arrives. Turkmen settlers spread across plateaus and valleys rapidly afterward. Tax rolls shrink, while conscription pools dry up. Crusade calls later answer symptoms, not original structural causes. The heartland shifts east, away from imperial Greek cities. Harold II rushes south exhausted, lets William win England at Hastings. After Stamford Bridge, men hurry down muddy, rutted roads. They form shield walls on Senlac Hill, waiting anxiously. Norman arrows test patience. Then cavalry feigned retreats work. Reserves commit early, leaving little margin for surprises. A rumored arrow strikes Harold, scattering command at dusk. Housecarls hold briefly, then yield to encircling charges downhill. London nobles hesitate, gifting William precious consolidation days. Castles sprout along routes, locking countryside to new masters. A kingdom changes language, law, and land overnight. Qin dynasty burns books, buries scholars, triggers revolt after Qin Shi Huang. Legalist policies centralize weights, coins, and road standards. Accounts describe purges targeting critics and certain classics. Heavy labor builds walls, canals, and imperial mausoleums. When the emperor dies, court eunuchs manipulate succession plans. Peasant uprisings erupt under leaders Chen Sheng and Wu Guang. Generals switch loyalties as provinces smell weakened authority. Liu Bang and Zhang Yu duel across rivers and passes. Qin fortresses fall, while tax records go up flames. A short, intense empire ends in chaotic partition. Qing court dismisses Western guns as barbarian toys, gets carved up. Opium wars force unfair treaties and opened treaty ports. Modernization efforts start late and stop early under conservatives. Sino-Japanese War exposes fleets built without doctrine or training. Indemnities drain treasuries, while foreign concessions expand steadily. Boxer unrest brings 8 nation columns into Beijing's streets. Railways, mines, and customs fall under external administration boards. Reformers argue, monarchs hesitate, and provincial armies grow autonomous. Revolution of 1911 finishes a dynasty already hollowed out. A proud court discovers pride doesn't stop steamships. Late Ming emperors ignore mass famine, splurge on palaces. Rebels take Beijing. Harvest failures stack during a colder climatic swing. Grain prices spike while granaries sit mismanaged and corrupt. Border wars drain silver that markets now demand for taxes. Li Zicheng rallies starving soldiers and peasants under simple promises. Gates open after officials flee or bargain for safety. The Chongzhen emperor reportedly dies on a hill behind palaces. Manchu armies cross passes and claim the capital afterward. Administrators switch banners to survive the regime change. Dynastic endings arrive disguised as tax receipts and weather. The Confederacy bombards Fort Sumter, unifies the North to crush it. Cannon fire turns a disputed harbor into national headlines. Lincoln calls volunteers, and enlistment offices overflow immediately. Blockades clamp ports, starving mills and arsenals inside Dixie. Railroads and factories give the Union compounding logistical advantages. Western rivers become highways for ironclads and blue uniforms. Emancipation reshapes the conflict's purpose and international sympathies. Prolonged attrition grinds armies and home fronts relentlessly. Sherman's marches break rail lines and fragile Confederate morale. One opening salvo builds the opponent's strongest coalition. The Zulu kingdom charges British rifles head-on at Ulundi. Empire ends. After Isandlwana's shock, Britain regroups with fortified columns. At Ulundi, squares of infantry layer disciplined volleys. Cavalry pursues, scattering regiments across burning grasslands. King Cetshwayo flees, then is captured months later. Protectorate structures replace independent Zulu governance and diplomacy. A proud military system meets industrial firepower's geometry brutally. Treaties divide territories under compliant local chiefs afterward. Resistance flickers, then fades under administrative pressure. A battlefield becomes a political blueprint for annexation. Carthage defies Roman orders again. Rome wipes the city off earth. Senators demand hostages, weapons, then relocation far from sea. Carthaginians surrender arms, then resist abandoning their ancestral home. Scipio Aemilianus tightens siege lines and starves districts systematically. Harbors close with chains. Fires consume warehouses and docks. Street fighting drags through layers of houses and temples. Survivors march into slavery as walls finally tumble. Salt legends aside, Rome refounds and repopulates strategic coasts. North Africa becomes a grain basket for legions afterward. Defiance ends with maps redrawn in Roman red. Xerxes invades Greece for revenge, loses his navy and Persian swagger. Bridged Hellespont and throne on a hillside show confidence. Thermopylae bleeds Greeks, yet delays Persian marches westward. Themistocles lures triremes into cramped Salamis narrows. Ramming tactics flip numerical advantage into wooden wreckage quickly. Supply lines stretch while inland armies face guerrilla raids. Plataea finishes what Salamis strategically began the previous year. Persian courtiers reconsider Greek ventures after heavy noble losses. Satrapies refocus on internal roads and royal posts. A grand parade ends stuck in a bottleneck. Sui China burns armies invading Korea, bankrupts itself, and implodes. Massive levies build canals and siege trains simultaneously. Goguryeo fortresses bait columns into attritional border campaigns. Storms scatter fleets along treacherous northeastern coasts repeatedly. Tax burdens spark revolts from farmers and displaced artisans. Frontier garrisons mutiny as promises go unpaid entirely. Palace factions blame generals, while granaries empty steadily. Tang leaders inherit roads and canals without crushing debts. Reforms follow, then expansion under far better logistics. A failed invasion writes another dynasty's founding chapter. Maya elites keep building monuments during megadrought. Cities collapse. Stelae rise while reservoirs shrink silently between ceremonies. Pollen records suggest drying fields and thinning forest cover. Warfare increases as rival kingdoms raid for captives. Trade routes shift when rivers and causeways become unreliable. Elites double down on ritual displays and palace expansions. Commoners migrate, abandoning plazas to vines and bats. Glyphs trail off, then end abruptly at several sites. The story varies by valley, never one single cause. A mosaic civilization fractures into scattered, quieter towns. Easter Island chiefs cut the last palm tree, society starves, debated. Pollen cores reveal forests thinning over centuries, not overnight. Canoe building suffers, limiting fishing and offshore travel. Soils erode faster once wind loses its natural windbreaks. Statue hauling continues, consuming ropes, rollers, and communal labor. European arrivals bring disease and slave raids later catastrophically. Population estimates vary widely. Decline likely had multiple drivers. Quarries and platforms stand silent as gardens shrink dramatically. Survival strategies pivot to rock mulching and hardy crops. A cautionary tale grows from complicated, layered evidence. Babylon's Belshazzar throws a party. Persia quietly walks in. Legend. Traditions tell of handwriting foretelling a kingdom's fall. Cyrus's forces reportedly divert rivers and slip under walls. Nabonidus' absence leaves commanders improvising poor responses. Markets open normally until soldiers appear at major gates. Shock spreads faster than runners can carry messages. Some districts surrender, others resist, and quickly lose. Administrative records continue under new seals remarkably soon. Belshazzar's name survives mainly through later texts and stories. A feast becomes shorthand for complacency before conquest. Nero plays politics while Rome burns, ends the Julio-Claudian line. Legend. The Great Fire rages through districts during a hot summer. Ancient sources disagree whether Nero watched, helped, or hindered. He opens gardens to refugees and plans new streets. Rebuilding features wider roads and stricter building codes afterward. Accusations later target Christians, fueling early persecutions in Rome. Conspiracies multiply. The Senate finally declares him enemy. Nero flees, then dies as loyalists melt away. Adoptive dynastic line collapses without a clear successor. Legends outlive the messy, contradictory primary accounts. Marie Antoinette's "let them eat cake" moment dooms the French crown. Myth. The phrase predates her and likely wasn't spoken. Still, shortages and rumor paint Versailles as heartless spectacle. Bread prices spike, crowds gather at bakeries and markets. Pamphlets caricature courtiers while debt figures terrify ministers. October marches bring Parisians to the palace demanding action. The royal family relocates under pressure to Paris. Debates radicalize as war and treason fears rise. Perception eclipses reality, and myths harden into politics. A sentence she never said shapes revolutionary theater. Constantinople's gate reportedly left unlocked. Ottoman troops pour in. Legend. Accounts mention a small postern, the Kirkoporta, left unsecured. Janissaries exploit confusion as defenders shift along walls. Bombards batter towers while ladders sprout like iron vines. Flag changes on ramparts signal panic across districts. Mehmed's fleets drag ships overland into the Golden Horn. Counterattacks falter as units lose commanders and standards. By noon, resistance pockets shrink to palace courtyards. Legends and logs blend around that fateful unlocked door. One gap, real or rumored, anchors the city's fall. King Leopold II's Congo brutality exposed. Belgium forces him to surrender his private empire. Rubber quotas drive severed hands, hostages, and terrorized villages. Investigators gather testimonies along river posts and abandoned plantations. E.D. Morel's campaigns flood Europe with grim evidence. Casement's report catalogs atrocities with chilling administrative detail. Shareholders and diplomats push Brussels to assume direct control. Leopold negotiates terms, then surrenders the Congo Free State. Populations decline, from forced labor, disease, and flight combined. Reforms follow, yet scars and memories persist for generations. A king's vanity project becomes a humanitarian scandal internationally.